Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel, Meetings Assistance for Jehovah's Witnesses. I hope you are all doing well. In this video, we will prepare for the book study, Complete Testimony, for the week of March 3rd to 9th. This week, we will study chapter 23, paragraphs 9 to 15. So, let's get started. Question 9. What did Paul teach about the Mosaic Law? Paul taught that the Mosaic Law was no longer obligatory, especially for the Gentiles. He explained that Jesus' death had annulled it and that justification before God no longer depended on obeying the law but on faith in Christ. It was said that Paul taught Jews to abandon the customs of the law, such as circumcision. However, his main teaching was that Gentiles were not required to follow the law and that salvation came through faith, not through the works of the law. Additional comments. Romans 3:21-26 shows that God's righteousness is revealed apart from the law and is obtained through faith in Jesus. Paul emphasized that following the Mosaic Law was not the way to be declared righteous, but rather faith in Christ's sacrifice. This demonstrated that the law had a temporary purpose and that Jesus was the ultimate means of salvation. In Galatians 5:1-7, Paul warns against trying to return to the law as a requirement for salvation. He explains that insisting on circumcision meant rejecting the freedom that Christ had given. His teaching highlighted that a relationship with God was based on faith, not on ancient rituals or rules. Question 10. Why do we say that Paul's view on the law and circumcision was reasonable? Paul's view was reasonable because he did not impose strict rules regarding circumcision or certain Jewish customs. He allowed believers to make personal decisions on these matters, as long as they did not do so thinking that the law was still necessary to gain God's approval. His balanced approach helped avoid unnecessary conflicts between Jews and Gentiles. Additional comments. Romans 14:1-6 shows that Paul understood that some Christians had inherited Jewish customs, such as observing the Sabbath or dietary restrictions. Instead of imposing rules, he promoted tolerance and respect, which helped maintain unity within the congregation. Galatians 5:6 emphasizes that neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any value in itself, but rather faith expressed through love. Paul made it clear that what truly mattered in Christian life was not external practices but trusting in God and how that faith influenced daily conduct. Question 11. What instructions did the elders give Paul, and what would he not have done? The elders asked Paul to participate in a purification rite along with 4 men who were fulfilling a vow, covering their expenses to show that he still respected the law. However, Paul would never have taught that salvation depended on following the Mosaic Law, since his central message was that justification came through faith in Christ, not through works of the law. Additional comments. Acts 21:23-24 shows that Paul agreed to participate in a Jewish rite not because he believed it was still necessary, but to dispel false rumors and maintain peace with Jewish Christians. This reflects his willingness to adapt to cultural issues without compromising his teaching on salvation through faith. Although Paul accepted this act of purification, in letters such as Romans and Galatians, he made it clear that the Mosaic law had been annulled. His participation was a conciliatory gesture, but he would never have allowed it to be interpreted as a requirement for gaining God's approval. Question 12. How did Paul show that he was willing to cooperate with the elders in Jerusalem? Paul showed his willingness to cooperate with the elders in Jerusalem by agreeing to participate in the purification rite they requested, even though he knew that the Mosaic law was no longer obligatory. He did so to avoid conflicts and maintain peace within the congregation, as long as no divine principles were compromised. Additional comments. In 1 Corinthians 9:20, Paul explains that he was willing to adapt to different groups to help them accept the Christian message. His attitude demonstrates that unity was more important than cultural differences, as long as fundamental truths were not compromised. Hebrews 13:17 highlights the need to obey and cooperate with those who lead the congregation. Despite his authority as an apostle, Paul showed humility by following the elders' recommendation, setting an example of respect and unity within the Christian congregation. Question 13, Part A. Why did certain Jews start a riot in the temple? Some Jews from Asia falsely accused Paul of bringing Gentiles into the temple, which was a serious violation of Jewish laws. This led to a violent riot against him. Additional comments. The Jews who attacked Paul believed they were defending their faith, but in reality, they acted without true knowledge. Their fanaticism led them to reject the Christian message, showing that zeal without understanding can be dangerous and lead to injustice. Just like Jesus and Stephen, Paul was falsely accused to justify his persecution. This highlights how, throughout history, those who promote the truth may face opposition based on lies and misunderstandings. Question 13, Part B. How was Paul saved? A Roman commander intervened and took him into custody to prevent the crowd from killing him. Despite the situation, Paul requested permission to speak and boldly defended his faith. Additional comments. Although the Romans were not followers of God, their intervention saved Paul's life. This demonstrates that God can use any authority or circumstance to fulfill his purpose and protect his servants. Instead of fearing, Paul saw the opportunity to address the people and defend his faith. His courage shows that, even in difficult moments, a Christian can turn persecution into an opportunity to preach and strengthen their testimony. Question 14-15, Part A. What did Paul explain to the Jews? Paul spoke to them in Hebrew to capture their attention and told them his personal story. He explained that he had been a zealous Pharisee, trained by Gamaliel, and had even persecuted Christians. Then, he recounted how Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus, left him blind, and later, Ananias miraculously restored his sight. Additional comments. In Acts 22, 1-5, Paul appealed to his cultural and religious connection with his audience. By emphasizing his education under Gamaliel and his former zeal for the law, he tried to show that his conversion to Christianity was not an impulsive act but the result of divine revelation. Paul explained that Jesus himself appeared to him on the road to Damascus. His transformation from persecutor to apostle was powerful evidence that Christ was alive and still leading his congregation. Question 14-15, Part B. What measures did the Roman commander take to find out why the Jews were so furious? To understand the cause of the uproar, the commander ordered Paul to be interrogated by flogging. However, upon learning that Paul was a Roman citizen, he stopped the punishment, as it was illegal to torture a citizen without trial. Additional comments. In Acts 22:24-25, the Roman commander ordered Paul to be flogged without knowing the details of the conflict. This reflects how governments often intervene in religious matters without truly understanding them, acting based only on public pressure. When Paul revealed his Roman citizenship, the commander immediately stopped the punishment. This demonstrates how Paul used his legal rights to protect himself and continue preaching, showing that Christians can use the law when necessary. Well, these have been the practical answers for this week's congregation book study. I hope this is very helpful to you, my dear brothers and sisters. I send you a big hug, and may Jehovah always bless and protect you.